Okay, welcome everybody. This is the Walking Writers of Prespa showcase. I'm in a minute. I'm going to introduce you to Anne Forrest, who can conceive the idea of having a writing group, and she'll tell you a little bit more about it. Walking Arts, and we've got to raise our hats to the EU Create Europe program in the name of the Walking Arts local communities. So thank you to the EU. Anne is going to be your host for the day or evening, and wherever you might be time-wise. So Anne Forrest is drawn to the resonance of place. Her short stories, essays, and poetry have appeared most recently in Hippocampus, One Art, Quarter After Eight, Gyroscope Review, and Royal Beauty, a collection of ekphrastic writing. She's the editor of Ways of Walking, an anthology of essays from New Door Books in 2022, inspired by her experience of walking the entire perimeter of Philadelphia. That project has prompted ongoing explorations within a growing community of walking artists and writers about the power of slow creative practice and art as collective witness, most recently at India's Shilim Institute. So I'm handing over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you so much. And everybody here, the entire walking artist community that has welcomed me into their fold. I was thinking about how anything I say that has to do with walking art should start with the phrase, little did I know, because this whole group came about because when we were getting ready for the walking art encounter meeting in Prespa last summer, I set out a query saying I'd be interested in having an informal group of talking to other people who wrote about walking, who have writing as part of their walking practice. And so we got together in Psarades, which is the main town where Prespa, the Prespa conference takes place. For those who don't know it, it's beautiful. It's by this lake. We're in the shade of some linden trees. And it turned out that people wanted to write and write there as we were sitting around. And so I set a timer for 20 minutes and we wrote about a walk that we had taken. And then we met again. And then we actually did a writing exercise where we were in different places because the conference was so busy that we couldn't meet one of the days, but we still wrote and sent text to each other via WhatsApp. And that became the process. And when we were about to leave, we decided that we wanted to continue. And so we're gathering today to celebrate 1 year of writing together, which is amazing. And every month we somewhat synchronously set our timers for 20 minutes and write about a walk. We have prompts. Different people give the prompts each month, and we'll be talking about that when we go through the readers. But it's been extraordinary. It's been a real way to connect across the world. We range from we're Australia to Western Canada and everywhere, not everywhere in between yet, but quite a few places in between, a big concentration in Europe and in England. And I want to thank the people that are in that time zone for meeting late so that the people in Australia didn't have to get up at 4 in the morning as they often do for these things. So we're having a time where we can celebrate. I got to raise a glass and just say I have a little seltzer here to toast you all. It's been extraordinary, and we're going to keep going for another year. But today you'll get to hear what we've written and what has come of it. So I'm going to start with we're going to go through the year, and the first writer will be Amy Tsilemanis from August, which was the first month after Prespa. And Amy actually wasn't with us in Prespa, but she had been there before, and we all thought should be included in this group, and I'm really glad she has been. She's been a wonderful presence. So Amy, handing it over to you, and I guess to your recording, but you might want to say something first about who you are, where you are, and what you were writing.
I'll give it a go. I'm here in bed. Hello, everybody. I'm away for work this week in Gunnerkurnai country, which is down in Lakes Entrance, in Victoria, Australia. But I'm usually in Ballarat, and I'm so happy to be here with you all. And I love our monthly gathering. Yeah, the one that I chose is from the first session we did last August, and Annemarie is going to play it. Um, I hope you enjoy.
Walking Writers, August 5th. I wish I was sitting at a long table at Psarades, water surrounding, pelicans, linden, yellow, a beer, a plate of treats, you all around me, thinking, scratching pens, holding some magic. But maybe we can hold it across our time spaces, this vessel of goodness in a time of evil. My chest aches at the latest news, shameful manipulation of language that stands in for the horror, decides to occupy, and I must hold to the momentary uplift of Sunday's March for Humanity in Sydney, a walk I didn't walk yet was with, in aching heart and in pride for my country folk, a rare thing. Steps across the bridge, stopping traffic in spite of police who should have been aiding the walkers. The walking hearts, bleeding for the bloodshed, for the hope of humanity, for truth not lies, for basic rights. And I dream of another walk, no pots and pans and chants, but a silent stand, a walk with olive trees and outstretched hands, a quiet song perhaps, walking not for refuge, but with lamps and seeds to plant, saying, "We will not forget you."
Thank you, Amy. This reminded me that one of the things about writing through the year is that we were writing about all that was happening in the world during the year. And I think that has come up, and you'll hear that come up in many of the things that are read. I'm going to go next, and I wrote for September, which was again a walk that we had taken just in the month before. A walk in Thorndike Bay, Olympic Peninsula, Washington. Oh, I'm in the US, obviously, I guess, and I live in Philadelphia. Oyster shells look like human feet, ridged with metatarsals and a rising rigid ankle bone. I collect them and plop them down on the deck where we've left our water shoes to dry. I wear those shoes now, walking at low tide, so I can squelch through mud and traverse the little eddies that at high tide rise higher than my knees. Now the shore extends far out into the bay, all oyster bed, gray and rough, what was under the water, which at high tide laps all the way to the line of driftwood, rose, and blackberry brambles, exposed. The air has changed with tide, the morning misty, windy, and chill. Wincing at the crunch of shells under my heavy tread, I turn away from the bay toward the inlet, what my sister probably rightly calls the slough. The sky is alive with wheeling birds, swallows that have suddenly appeared on this sunless morning. They swoop in wide arcs over my head. I am lifted by their lightness, yet I cannot defy gravity, ride atmospheric currents. Land-bound, I opt to follow the narrow stream as far as I can into the woods, find perhaps the source of the fresh water that runs into the salty bay. Though as I write, I realize that the particular beauty of this place, the dynamic of this place, is in the steady exchange of fresh water for salt and vice versa. One current rushes in as another pulses out. The next morning, when the tide is high, I will swim in the channel and without even looking for this, feel that border between saline and fresh, or should say taste, the evidence of counter on my lips. But this morning I am on foot, conscious everywhere I walk of the heaviness of tread, first over the barnacles, mussels, and oysters that live in this constant wash of water, rising and receding, of cover and exposure. I try to step around them, make my way where they are not. Despite all appearances, they are living beings, not casts of human feet, not dried up bones. The water forms a small cliff of sand cliff that is from the perspective of the hundreds of tiny crabs that skitter sideways and quickly bury their bodies as I, the giantess, strides through. High, too, from the perspective of the little mammal whose paw prints I see crossing the mound of sand. I follow them to where they disappear in tufts of beach grass at the shallow inlet's edge. Otters, I think, because my son spotted a trio cavorting up the beach when he was out on the paddleboard looking for seals. Oh, how I would love to see them. They must have been fishing here. As I move closer to inspect, I create a mini avalanche. Maybe not so many to the crabs who reside in these high-rise sandbars. I spy them in the pocked mud banks. The perforations, when I squat and peer more closely, reveal themselves as homes, portals to a crab condo complex. I am moving through a metropolis of crabs, most no bigger than my baby toes. They wave their pincers at me from the safety of their hidey holes. I mean no harm. Farther up, away from the shore, the clusters of sea beans give way to grasses and saplings, a proto-forest. The stream curves to form a shallow pool that probably never goes completely dry, vibrating with shimmering silver fish. I continue as far as I can, past fallen trees and ferns, into the snags tangled together into a dam, a barrier I can't climb over. I have reached a deep and shaded place, quiet except for water's trickle, our rented temporary home within shouting distance, and yet I am alone in a place larger than my small, clumsy body, a place where the tall redwoods pull at my perceptions, tug this moment into something expansive, lush, though that is not quite the word, for there's an emptiness within this fullness, like I have become the thinnest of membranes, a translucent balloon that keeps filling and filling. And on the way back, I pass my sunken footprints, impressive marks, which I know will wash away. The trace of my being there is here, now, a few weeks after, a track of inked letters on this notebook's gridded page. Next is a walk of transitions of October, Annemarie Lopez.
Hi there. I'm Annemarie and I work with Walk, Listen, Create. And I'm just working, I'm going to share my screen. So just let me know if you can't see this. This is a piece I wrote in October after doing a walk with Eleanor Ozon, who does this wonderful project every year where she does a walk with women. It's called Women Walking the City at Night. And it's usually on the night of the full harvest moon. So I did a walk with her and I wrote about that for this project. So the harvest moon was in October. Usually it's quite often in September. It was very dark and cold this night, but it was a wonderful walk, which I did with Claire Cowan, who is another walking artist in London, and I'm in London. Okay. Why do we always talk about the man in the moon when clearly she's a woman? You only have to look at her, the way she glows, then hides, revealing herself by degrees. Tonight she is full, utterly herself, as if suddenly in love with the world. They call her the harvest moon. She appears when the last of the summer fruit is gathered, full of sweetness before the leaves fall. A group of us have slipped out to see her in the night. We follow her to the Victorian Park, while dinners congeal on counters and children dream and messages wait for replies. We needed air, movement, and let's admit it, a little magic. The moon waited like the cool girl chewing gum outside the school gate. Come on then, I'll show you something, if you dare. At the entrance to the park, a group of men loiter. They call out to us. You know they'll be closing soon, they say. We won't be long, says one of us. The gate's still open. The men shrug. We were really just wanting to talk to you, they grin. We laugh and walk through the gates without turning back, just as the cool girl instructed. Everyone up for a climb if they lock us in, says one. Sure, says another. I climbed these fences when I was pregnant. The moon seemed to hear us. She leaned lower, her face pale and knowing, and whispered, "Watch this." What was she going to show us, I wondered? Does she have a werewolf lover she makes howl? We couldn't resist. We followed her deeper into the park, our shadows long and liquid on the grass. Her light pooling around us, cool as water. Someone began to sing an old folk song, and we joined in, even though we didn't know that we remembered the words. We sang like drunks, giddy with her light. A security car drifted past, headlights a dim echo of the moonlight. "You'll have to go," they said. "We're closing the gates." We nodded, turned, and took the side path to the canal, where the moon doubled herself in the dark water, showing us how to be two places at once. As we turned to go, I looked up and saw her blow a kiss into the dark silhouettes of the trees, her lips purple-grey, crushed velvet. Something rustled in the undergrowth, a sound like a low growl, and she winked at me as if to say, "Now you know." And that's my piece.
Thank you, Annemarie. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And I think one of the other things that happens is because of this walking art community, and you'll see this comes up again, is that there are walks that were done with other walking artists who have been part of, that we've known from the conferences or have done things like Eleanor's walk. We'll have some later walks that have been inspired by walks that we've been invited to do. And it's sort of this sense of being just this sense of connection that keeps reverberating and rippling.
Okay, great.
Next November, we had Viv Corringham.
Thank you. So I'm based in New York. I'm British. I'm a walking sound artist and singer, not a writer at all, but but I love being part of this group. So the prompt for November was write about a walk with ghosts, however you interpret that. My ghosts accompany me on my walks. When a good friend killed herself in my flat while I was away, people told me I would leave because of the memories, but I didn't leave. She was a friendly ghost. Why not? Not a scary one. So it is with the others who walk with me, many friendly ghosts from a long life. Some painful walking memories, the 4-mile daily walk to the hospital to see my dad in his last weeks, the walks I used to do in Paris with friend Sante, long lost to AIDS. But also there's my project, Shadow Walks, where people take me on their special walks, then I return alone and sing their traces as if I'm the shadow or ghost of that person. But the walk with ghosts that I wanted to write about is a walk along the route of the Lost River Fleet in London, which follows ancient ghosts and also my own ghost of 20 years ago. The water is now culverted and runs below the streets. My journey above ground was meant to try and sense the water below my feet. And I've since done similar walks with other lost rivers in London and New York. So I was a student of sound art at the time and very uncertain about the worth of my projects and ideas. Were they just ridiculous, self-indulgent? But I was drawn to this walk and I armed myself with lots of papers to carry and speak along the journey. They were writings from the time when the Fleet River flowed past the meat market and basically was an open stinking sewer. But also I had writings from later, once the fleet had been buried. And the later ones often remembered a beautiful wide river. One writer remembered seeing 3 sailing boats side by side. As I walked, I could imagine the ghost of the river in all its contradictory states and those who lived there and had strong feelings about it. The walk goes along Fleet Street and passes streets that remember its watery past, Watergate, Old Sea Coal Lane, and more. Recently, I walked the Fleet route again and remembered myself then, how nervous I was about what to do in life. I sensed my earlier self turning this corner and remembered pausing by the Thames to watch the Fleet water trickle out from its pipe. Much of the walk had changed in 20 years, but to my surprise, there is now no way to reach the River Thames because of a huge construction. I felt sad and nostalgic for the last ghostly trace of the Fleet, now completely vanished. And then I read the sign that told the reason for the work, to stop so much waste from entering the Thames. And the waste, well, that is coming from what the sign called the Fleet Sewer. Thank you.
So we have one for December, but I have to queue it up. So I'm going to skip that first and skip ahead to January, which is Lise is going to read it, Lise Brenner.
Okay, well, hello, my name is Lise. I am American, but I live in Amsterdam, which is where I am right now. And the topic for this, for January was endings and beginnings, beginnings and endings. And I think it might have been prompted by Molly, but I'm not totally sure. Anyway. 2021 was the last time I was in New York in January for the end and the beginning of the year. It was icy. I loved the bite of the air and the fact that there was snow, and that I was there with a man who made me laugh and whose hands were large and warm, and that we held hands when we walked. We walked a lot over a snow-covered used-to-be farm become nature preserve near his upstate house, and in the city around his East 50s neighborhood. These were his territories, but the walking was mine, and for a while he joined me. He preferred taxis or his extremely comfortable car. Knowing him made me familiar with the pocket parks lying on the edge of far east Midtown Manhattan, their vistas across the East River to North Brooklyn and southern Queens, with Italian and French restaurants last decorated in the late 60s or mid-80s. Grocery stores with prices twice whatever is normal, with the talkative tables of old white men in expensive and well-worn sweaters drinking coffee in the diners and bagel places along First Avenue between 52nd and 55th, with dress shops perched in old brownstone selling handmade frocks to rich ladies, and cleaners offering fine tailoring services on streets lined with trees inclining above the window tops. This other world, right across the river from what had been mine. But the endings, beginnings walk I want to write about is my last trek around his upstate property, my goodbye to all that walk, my farewell to the birches and the deep carpet of leaves that the grass and dirt poked through, the turns up the hill from the road to the house. It was June and just starting to get really hot. I didn't know it yet, but my hip bones were crumbling away inside my body, and so was my sense of safety in navigating one step to the next. I knew I would never see this place again, and I wanted to thank it for being so beautiful, for giving me the peace and luxury of deep summers and late fall, early spring, and dark, hard winter, for holding the house so perfectly, for the smells of pine and rotting leaves, for how the lake glints through the rushes where the road turns, for branches frozen edged against the moon, and then new green leaves, and then the deep ocean of summer foliage turning yellow, gold, reddish brown. That slanting sun, that I got to see and smell and feel all this, the way the air passed over my skin, how the ice formed on the lake road, and how differently it did that on the narrow gravel road up to the house. The warmth of the stone wall at midnight in August, the sounds of birds calling across the frozen hill. Sitting outside atop that same hill on summer nights, listening to Nancy Wilson and Nat King Cole and Aretha Franklin and Sarah Vaughan, drinking red wine, and I would doze off while he found another favorite and another and another, my feet gathered in his big hand, until finally we'd gather up the glasses and the remnants of cheese, climb the stairs and go to bed, rouse at sunrise to the sound of trees and other silences. I walked up and down and found paths I'd missed somehow, and everywhere I went, I said, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's beautiful. And so these are all we've all read them. So the process is we send these as texts on WhatsApp. So it's a very interesting medium. I think most of us write longhand in a notebook. I mean, my process, I write longhand in a notebook and then I transcribe it onto the phone, which is its own process. And then we read each other's, and that's part of it's part of this whole monthly ritual for me. For the first Tuesday of the month is the writing, and then the transcribing, and then the reading, and the reading of the comments. And it's so thank you is a good way to end that one and make this next transition, which is I'm going to take us slightly back. One of our members, one of our participants couldn't be here, is Katie Down. She is also a sound artist and is based in New York, but she had been traveling. And she wrote for December, the prompt was to write about an interior walk, however that was interpreted, however anybody wanted to interpret it. And Katie wrote about a dream. Katie Down. In my dream last night, I was walking through a familiar path to one of my favorite lakes where I can swim, surrounded by trees and birds tucked away in a semi-private, secluded spot. And in my dream, I am walking through the woods barefoot. I am with a couple of friends, and we come across this opening that in waking life does not exist, where there are 100 or more people gathered kind of near a culvert or rather large opening into what was the lake. I am confused in my dream, wondering why I had never come across this particular feature of my beloved walk. And we suddenly come to a fork in the road just beyond where everyone is gathered. And there is a choice to make, to go up this narrow path to the right or to the left. I take the right side path, and it is very steep, and we have to scramble a bit, and we keep climbing almost on our hands and knees at this point, and get to the top of our hill. But there is no lake, just a vista. I woke up, not disturbed in the least, but more curious than anything else. I suppose the most mileage we can cover in an interior space is in our dreaming state, where we can go anywhere we want for as long as we wish, and where our mind takes us remains a beautiful mystery. Next, it's February, and the writer was Molly Wagner. Molly has also been taken on a very essential role in this group, which is that she is our archivist and takes all those pieces from WhatsApp and has been assembling them into Google Docs, which is why we can do this today, because otherwise it would have been very difficult. So Molly gets, and Molly, as you could see, is in a place where it is winter.
Oh, yeah. Good morning. Well, good morning from Sydney, and winter cold. And this is so much fun. It's great to hear everybody read their writing. So February, the theme was unity separation. And I started my writing. Annemarie, do you have the photo of my map? So I started this and I called it writing, both spellings, writing with an R, writing with a W. Unity separation. I took these words, ideas on my morning run. I wanted them to bubble in my brain as I pounded the pavement. Lol. I do find that running and walking often send my thoughts in unexpected directions. I did my post-run sweat map, thanks to Marie Ann's concept, and jotted down the various fragments of thought and earworms. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Don't fence me in. One of my first instincts with a theme is the words, word games, definitions, the habit of an English teacher. Unity, Unitarianism, the church where I spent so much of my life, my spiritual home. Yet I am separated from the Unitarian Church in Sydney because of the disastrous relationships I had with some of the members of the congregation as the result of being the wife of a disinterested minister or a minister who didn't know how to be in that congregation. It's complicated. It's a long time ago. I sometimes go to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo when I visit family and friends in my hometown. That is the church where I have so much history and yet am separated by time and distance. I'm good at divorce, something I wrote on the sweat map, although divorce often means walking away from the person or situation entirely. Repairing, reparation, unification after a separation is much more difficult. A friend used the phrase porous boundaries when talking about her relationships with her adult children. I think I'm learning these skills of building porous boundaries. Emotional habits of an adult, and half the time I feel like a disgruntled adolescent. The run was glorious. It's a beautiful morning. The sky is clear. It was cool but not cold. The almost full moon hung big and white in the blue sky. I thought of Eleanor and wondered if we will walk in the light of the harvest moon. My art life and friends has become so big and wonderful and exciting. This is where the concepts of unity and separation seem to weave together. A project, a walk, such as women walking in the city at night, creates an event, a time where those of us living far apart walk together. The walk unites us in ways that might never happen without Eleanor's guidance and care, stewardship. I found a plastic white flower on the ground with a bubble cup that can be used to stick it to the side of something. It's small and light enough that I carry it in my pocket for the rest of my run.
So then we are in March, and we have Tamsin, who joined us, also someone who had been to Prespa the 2 years before and hadn't been there. I mean, the 2 years previous and hadn't been there last year, and had heard about us and said, how can I join? And we said, welcome. So welcome, Tamsin. Tamsin, it's been wonderful to have you.
I've considered myself very lucky to have been able to join the group partway through. So thank you, everybody. It was a privilege. I'm going to share my images if I can. I'm a walking artist from Edinburgh. Yes, I love walking with people from a distance. So you'll hear from, as I start to write, that I had been reading Annemarie's piece about the full moon before I walked, and Molly just mentioned that as well. I had been also walking with Eleanor. So the prompt that I wrote to was Danae's prompt. She wrote, I'd like you to write about a pull in your surroundings. As you start walking, is there something that pulls your attention? Is it a sound, or maybe a color, or even a person? Follow it. Follow it until you can no longer keep up with it, or until something else like it pulls your attention. Feel free to make a list of everything, to record the sounds or make pictures. So I start off by reflecting on the moon that I'd been reading about and talking directly to my friends, you all who are here tonight. And there's a reference to a donkey, which is related to a book by Robert Louis Stevenson, Walking with the Donkey in the Cevennes, and in turn to my blog, which is called Walking Without a Donkey. And is it okay if I say that the indication that we're given is that we write continuously for 20 minutes, but we don't go back and edit?
Yes, that's right.
I close my phone. Somewhere over the clouds, I muse, above the bus roof, is our Edinburgh full moon. On the spur of the moment, I'm getting off early to walk, your words ringing in my ears and your images passing in front of my eyes like a slideshow. Both Before both feet have touched the ground, my eyes alight on the new green leaf sprigs, which are pointing upwards. My eyes obey, looking up to the dusty green branches escaping over the railings. I follow their gaze to the sky, where there's a patch of blue. Okay, blue is what is pulling me then. On the ground, vague blue of sidewalk patches, blue-green grass shavings from someone's early season mowing. I'm with the blue. But what? There's a glint of scarlet at the side of me. Newly polished car. No, only a momentary distraction. There are green leaves ringing the lamppost. Then again, they have white spots on their prickly surfaces. Nearby yellow winter jasmine is matching the worn street markings and an infinity sign on the side of a van, a daffodil as well. It's a rainbow, that's it, a rainbow. And as I walk a little slower, coughing from the recent bout of COVID, I embrace the colourful cacophony that pulls me on, competing with my growling belly hunger. Snowdrops and pale pink Christmas roses, golden apples and blue jeans, royal blue trio of van, footpath sign and tanning shop, cerise, camellia, Japanese quince, orange, black railings state RLS on the gate. I've never noticed before that Robert Louis Stevenson used to live here. My vision is so full of the array of colourful stimulation that I almost don't notice my finger reaching instinctively to stroke the tongue-like leaf. The smell of his perfume won't be ignored, nor the boom of the 1 o'clock gun. When I listen, there's an insistent beeping of a backing truck and a whittering of birds. Touch, smell, and noise are welcome distractions. I walk on. But the pull of my stomach is attracting me more strongly than anything else. Rejecting the cloying scent of Chinese restaurant, only momentarily noting the grooves in the stone that my swinging fingertips settle into, I speed up. I know, she drawls into her phone. As the water slides below the bridge where I've seen dippers darting in the past, I'm drawn down, but no, I must eat before work starts again. Walking around the corner, up the hill, I fix on that. A robin sounds the alarm, audible over the traffic. Go left, the arrow points. No, eat, moans my tummy. Go this way. Look up. Sit in, the notices demand. Not even the glimpse of a shop sign, Lunara, stops me now. Eventually, I sit down to a lunch of avocado and rocket beside a wall of lush vegetation and exotic pink blooms. Sadly, there's not a donkey to be seen.
Thank you, Tamsin. So next we have Doerte, and for April, and this was one that was Amy suggested, but it's related to, I know that I saw Allie Pretty is here as well, who was doing her own walking with in solidarity with the people of Lebanon, and a planned walk along the Lebanon Mountain Trail, which then had to be done long distance as well. So there's a lot of reverberation here. And Doerte, you can explain more about what you've now done, and welcome. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. It's really good to be here. And thank you to Anne for organizing and for actually inspiring me to weave several of the pieces that I've written throughout our shared writing practice into one, and who's been giving me really expert editing feedback. And so what I will read now is a part of that text that's, and I actually, as a celebration today, I submitted it, and I finally did. Yeah. So I'm based in Barcelona. So a lot of my walking practice is with the Mediterranean. And sorry, I'll just so it's called Walking, Dancing in Sacred Solidarity with Water and Stones. I am walking north of Barcelona on April 8th, 2026, participating in a global month-long invitation to move in solidarity with communities along the Lebanon Mountain Trail. Across the Mediterranean from me is the Levant. I gaze out to sea and imagine the Naba al-Sukar in Lebanon, the coldest spring on the trail, emerging from a mountain's heart at 1,713 meters, burbling, murmuring, splashing. I sense into the distinction between hot and cold, into the refreshing coolness of the spring water emerging from amongst the rocks, in contrast to the heat waves of exploding bombs and the anguish burning in human hearts. Every step of my walk allows me to breathe with this tension. My walking and breathing are with the communities in Lebanon as much as with other parts of the Levant, where multiple interests are once again forcefully pulling in different directions. Thinking of the ensuing horrific loss of humanity causes my breathing to accelerate. Where I am, the air is still in the early spring sun. I am carrying a blue silk scarf dyed to look like flowing water as an acknowledgement of silk panels designed for the communities of the Lebanon Mountain Trail. I reflect on the qualities of a cool, calm flow and how humans feeling hurt turns into a stream of heated responses and into the crazy disease of human military logic. The masculine energies of angry humans making decisions without regard for cultural or ecological sensitivities. Masculine energies gone awry, generating toxic violence without considering the accelerating pulsation of their and our delicate nervous systems. As I sit the serene expanse of the blue Mediterranean waters and the stones under my legs murmur and hum to me of life's vitality beyond human cycles of violence. What is this sacred vitality, I wonder? What is its place in our contemporary politics? How does it challenge authoritarian or democratic belief systems? I have walked along bodies of water with these questions many times. Learning, water knows no borders. Thank you.
Thank you, Doerte. And now we have Sandra Cowan, who wrote also to this prompt. And I think there are a few, we're going to have another at the end too, where there's doubling, which you get to see how much variety there is, how the interpretations of the prompt, how the walks that they take are all, and the voices are all so different. So, Sandra. So good.
Thanks, and yeah, thanks, Doerte. That was beautiful. So the prompt, which came through Amy, I put the link in the chat about the project, the Lebanon Mountain Trail, Walking in Solidarity. So that's what we were doing that month, and we were invited to reflect on 5 questions from Bertrand Russell, which are: who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? How should we live? And what is sacred? And I'm here in Canada, in Lethbridge, Alberta, which is where I live and work. And shout out to Barbara and Marlene, my fellow Canadians here. It's nice to see you here. Maybe there's others who I don't know, but thanks for showing up. This is my piece. It was Easter Sunday, and there are still small patches of snow in the woods. There's much to say about the Cypress Hills where we walked. It's a small patch of hilly wooded terrain that rises far above the flat prairies all around. A high oasis of forest in an ocean of grassland, home to mountain lions, squirrels, lodgepole pine, white spruce, aspen, poplar, and all the birds and other creatures, like me, who need the forest to live. Historically, this was shared land, a source for teepee poles, firewood, water, shelter from the weather, land that was collective and never fought over, at least up until the time of the first Northwest Mounted Police outpost just east of here, and the white settlers they were protecting. After that, everything changed. Many people starved and froze here. The trail is beautiful, soft with pine needles, shaded, curving up and down and around, the light filtering through the tall, straight pines, tiny patches of green moss here and there. There is windfall, many long trees crisscrossing the ground beneath the vertical lines of their upright kin. The sounds of squirrel chatter, woodpeckers, trees squeaking where they lean together, the wind coming across the valley. The wind always follows us. These sounds do not disturb the quiet. We talk about Lebanon and how little we know about what's happening there and why. We feel gratitude for this peaceful, voluntary walk on a forest trail and our great good fortune to live here in relative freedom and safety. We keep an eye out for mountain lions, nonetheless, and Tom brought his bear spray. We are careful people, people of great privilege, white settlers descended from people who took advantage of the situation in North America to try to make their lives better. We are hominids, bipeds. We are soft living creatures among all the other living creatures in the world. There are many we's. We come from stardust. We are made of dirt, water, air, energy, and we will return to them. We should live kindly. Does our walk in rural Canada have any effect on people suffering on a mountain trail in Lebanon? Probably not, but it has an effect on us to hold them in our heart minds, and maybe we will pay more attention beyond our bubble of privilege. In my magical thinking, the delight and calm of this forest walk would be felt by the people fleeing on the Lebanese mountain trails. I imagine I can take some of their fear, desperation, grief, and return to them ease and comfort and safety. We sit on a bench looking out over the hills, drinking spicy hot chocolate from an enameled tin cup. Our feet rest on pine needles and rock. Our eyes rest on forested hills and a slate gray sky. Our bodies rest against each other. Our ears and lungs are open. It is all sacred. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Allie, for giving us this prompt that you didn't even know you were giving us this great gift in April for our walk. And thank you, Amy, for being the prompter that connected that. I think we all were very profoundly moved by our walks with you and the walk that you were doing. So thank you. So now we are in May. And we again have, well, we'll start with Clara, who gave us this prompt, and she can tell us about it. And this was getting ready for many of us gathered in person in May at Clara's gathering in Catalonia to walk along the Muga River. And so there was a nice connection there. You got us ready, Clara, with this prompt.
Yes, I was totally immersed in this spirit of the waters, and one of my collaborators, Macaellas, told me that form of saying hello in a tribe in the Amazons was a form of knowing each other, was to ask who are your waters. So that's what I proposed as a prompt. And I must say that I'm not very strict in automatic writing. a lot of times my automatism go more in finding quotations or things like this. So the text I wrote had a quotation of Heraclitus that came immediately to my mind. And as it is pretty short, I will sing it. Legei pu Heraclitos oti panta horei kaiuden menei kai potamuroe arei kazonta onta legeios disaiston auton potamon ucanem baies Plato Cratylus. Heraclitus says somewhere that all things move and nothing remains, and lightning things that are to the flow of a river. He says that you could not enter the same river twice. What is your river? The one you have bathed in. Return to your river, enter it once more. Tell us what you felt in the water, and also how you were perceived, how the blackbird, the wagtail, the willow, the carp, and the stone felt you. Thanks.
Thank you, Clara. That reminds me of when our last meeting in Prespa, we had exercise where we all gathered pieces together from our walks that just orally talked about them. And Clara wrote a song that I don't know if anyone recorded it, but I feel like we have to re-sing it at some point because that was a wonderful moment and I think launched us. And so Danae also entered her own waters, and it's now your turn.
Hi, everybody. I am Danae and I am based in Ghent. I'm from the Netherlands, but I live in Belgium now. I am an animator, filmmaker from profession, but also a writer. I chose this prompt of Clara to read because I really liked how the process was for me. I wrote the text in a stream of consciousness. But literally there is no punctuation, there is no stopping. And it felt only naturally for me, even though unfortunately I was unable to come to Spain in May to walk with you. For some of you, I could still walk on that Tuesday. And yes, this is my river text, my stream of consciousness. It's May and still spring, but we are not yet used to the warmth of the coming summer, especially not this early. But maybe I remember it wrong, that it could have been this warm in spring when I was younger, just like I remember that it would be so cold in winter. That it had been long since I felt the heat. And this unexpected warmth even made me sweat my jacket off when I took my feet out for a walk, like I do every day. But then after those warm days, which is now 3 days ago, then arrived the dark and heavy clouds that looked like they carried water from far away. For a long time now, we're waiting to pour it all over us, and it did. And it was wonderful as I walked in my soaked ballerinas, feeling many lukewarm drops roll down around my face, tickling my chin and neck. and pouring down my spine, wetting my clothes from the inside out, while all the time walking at normal speed because it made me feel so alive. And I wanted to call the people running around me looking for dry shelter to slow down, as we're not made of sugar, as we Dutch would say, but also because water makes hard things pour away more easily, as it loosens everything up. So it was good to have some water pouring over me as I walked home, with the promise to myself to take some rest and write. Because I felt so restless and I couldn't put my finger on why, as my head was so full of heavy fog, but not heavy enough to drip out of my eyes or my nose or ears, as it was just there to take me along to make me follow the current, but being too strong to swim against it, as then my head would go under and I had to stop swimming, waiting for my head to pop back up to take a breath. So I just kept walking, and strangely in this foggy stream it's quiet. And I'm wondering what's going on, because it's not like I haven't walked here before, but maybe it would feel so incredibly good to just float in a river and let my ears be covered by the water, and all they would hear is a full muffled bubble of crackling and gurgling noises, just like I heard yesterday in the soundscape of my friend who plays the accordion, who made a soundscape of a river that I listened to, and it was exactly what I needed in that moment of mental constipation, to have that tickle in my ear canal and brain, and thought that maybe it's not all that bad, because there are people who also like to make this stuff and see a beauty in walking in the rain while soaked, and that I'm so lucky to have feet and hands to take me forward, albeit in my head or on paper. Like how yesterday I took a big fat blue marker and drew on the paper and didn't take my hand off it until the urge to stop emerged. And I looked to see what shapes the lines had formed and saw footsteps and tiny people with silhouettes of blue looking around at what to do or what they felt. And they were on their knees and bowing and walking and looking up. And one even had their arms stretched out to the sky. And maybe I felt like, with drawing the long blue lines, I extracted some of that blue inside me and put it on the paper while I heard the dripping and echoes of clavier in my head, as the heavy rain outside had stopped. But the smell of it was still everywhere, and I remembered that slow movement is still movement, and even seemingly calm rivers are never still. Thank you.
Thank you. That lovely stream of consciousness that goes. It's a stream of words that goes with the stream of the river, and it's all fluid, which I feel like this whole process is about fluidity. So the river prompt was very appropriate. And then now we are in June, which is our last month. We're going to write again tomorrow morning, well, morning for me, whatever time it is for you. But this was a prompt from Viv, and Kel Portman is going to.
I'll have a quick word about the prompt. The prompt was one that Viv made for June, and it was basically a sound walk, a sonic walk, which is quite an interesting angle. I was walking at the time of the prompt from the source of the River Wye in Wales, get this right, and walking down this river. So it was a reflection on the sounds and the sensations that I had whilst walking down this very wet route in Wales, following the river. So I'll leave it to you now, Annemarie, to actually make a start.
Prespa Walking Writers, June 2026. Walking in the rain to the River Wye's source in the Cambrian Mountains of Wales. Clouds flow in from the west, made from weather in the wild Atlantic. The breeze pulses as it encounters trees. A scythe-like susurration fills the spaces between leaves. There's the eerie sound of stridulating boughs and branches as they gyrate and rasp together. A few minutes before, the taxi door had clunked shut. The sing-song Welsh accent of the driver, so exotic to my English ears, lost in the emptiness of the trailhead car park. Perched on a stone, silent and hopeful, a chaffinch watched, quietly anticipating food. Walking into the wood, gravel kicked up. Stones and boulders cannon off one another with each downhill step. Here puddles had become lakes. As the path meandered, it became formalized into a boardwalk, raised off the sodden ground. A few other walkers made their way towards the viewpoint, their feet beating in an anarchic rhythm on the wooden boards. Under the shelter of trees, occasional drips land on my newly raised umbrella. The rain, slow and light at first, rapidly increases as I walk out into the open. It's driven by a boisterous breeze that projects the rain horizontally. With my umbrella held at a jaunty 90 degrees, the deluge beats a tattoo, its sound raising to a crescendo, then falling as an unknown hand adjusts the volume. Now in a steep valley and out in the open, the river's source becomes clear. The snaking path rises towards lowering clouds. It brings me closer to the white noise of the water falling. Though it's hidden by trees, as I walk round a bend, the source of the sound becomes visible. I glance down to see the river cascading over rocks older than time, shaped by the ice age before last. The sound increases as I get closer, hissing, then separating into small gurgles and sloshes as the water breaks into pools and eddies. The path leads me away from this juvenile river that shows all the exuberance of a teenager. As I walk, my boots swish through wet grass. The climb continues over exposed drifts of moorland. Here sheep graze happily until I'm noticed. Then new lambs kick off, bleating towards a patient parent, returning to the safety and comfort of the teat. Sheep conversations continue while I pass, with calls and responses filling the damp air. The drumbeat of rain stops as rapidly as it started, leaving the wind as the dominant sound. When it drops, a hovering skylark's plaintive song rises high under a clearing sky. The bird takes no pause for breath, with singing that continues for several minutes at a time. Eventually, it decides to move position and resume its song over another patch of uncontested mountain. As the wind increases, another belt of cloud arrives. It brings with it more rain to hammer on the umbrella. Gradually, rivulets seep through waterproofs and into boots. When walking, the sound of wet feet in wet boots is like no other.
I imagine some of you have probably experienced that yourself. There we are.
Thank you, Cal. That was great to have the sound effects. That was a nice surprise. We had a
Yes, renegade sheep.
Yeah. Yeah, that was wonderful. So that is what we have all written. I know for some of you it's very late. I was thinking we could chat a little if you feel like hanging around, and also see if there are any questions from the people in the audience here. But I wanted to one of the things I was curious about having, since we're all gathered together, is what do you feel you've gotten out of this process, and how has it affected either your writing or your walking or something else? If you want to jump in.
I can say something if I want to warm up the room while everyone else is gathering their thoughts. I've always been really interested in, I actually did a PhD on urban writing and crime writing, and how they're connected. So how walking in the city makes you start piecing things together and creating stories. And I looked a lot at Dickens and how he was insomniac and he used to walk through the city at night. and started piecing things together. And he'd meet a homeless person, or he'd talk to a policeman. And so even though I'd sort of thought about that from a sort of an intellectual point of view and reading other people's books and articles about all of these things, it was interesting to be doing it myself in a very free-form way. So walking around, and often I'd know ahead of time what the prompt was. And so when I was walking, I would be thinking about that. Sometimes I didn't know, and I'd already done the walk, and I would think back to it and piece it together in my mind, and then things would emerge and come together. So it was really interesting to kind of sometimes work backwards and then sometimes know what the prompt was and do my walk on the day that I had to write. And then how the little fragments come together, and then how you form those. And sometimes, and sometimes it would be in that process of walking that this idea and the connections would all come together in my mind before I sat down to write it. So yeah, I mean, the process is great. And the forced time limit as well is great, because you can't be too precious about things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been really important for me. And I'm just amazed at what comes out just sitting down and writing for those 20 minutes, and what comes out of everyone. And I think it's I've walked and I've written, but that was my hope, was to think about how you make it less writing about a walk and really writing a walk. And for me, this process has really helped do that. And also just seeing how different everybody's voices are, different approaches, and that's been inspiring as well. And also how we weave. I've been very struck about how it's a way of processing what's going on in the world, as I hope some of you have heard in this too, and put that into our writing and into our walking without it being necessarily about that. These ideas just emerge because we're writing so freely and so quickly.
And it's also a way of getting to know each other, to hear about home territory or places where people choose to take walks, how they do it, whether they walk, whether they run, whether they dream, and learning about each other. Like, I'm struck by your oyster shells, because I didn't read the early ones because of the way WhatsApp is. You don't get to see the things before you've joined the group. And we have oyster shells, 100-year-old oyster shells on our beach here. So yeah, it's lovely to get to know everybody through the writing of the walking.
Yes, and some of us who did end up being in Catalonia together in May, I think a few of us commented like, oh, I feel like it hasn't been that long since we've last seen each other, because we connect with each other every month and sometimes in between.
I just wanted to say, to Tamsin's point about WhatsApp and you can't read the earlier ones, that's why I started making the Google Docs, because I reading on my phone gives me headaches. So I wanted a way to be able to read the words and preserve them in a way, just in case, who knows, because this thing keeps growing and the writing is so fabulous. So yeah, so you can access everything all the way back through the shared link. So, but it's great. I love this. I love the discipline of this monthly writing with everyone. It's been really amazing over the last 12 months. So thanks, Anne, for organizing it, and thanks everybody for contributing.
Thank you. Is anybody else, Lise?
Yeah, I just wanted to really thank you, Molly, because it was great to be able to go back and read it so easily, and also just to look at sort of, each time I was like, oh, you're right, I was there, or I was there, or I was there, I was there. And so it's a really lovely kind of a diary of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, are there any questions from the audience? Does anybody else want to have anything that they want to add or say? Leanne, I think you're muted if you're trying to talk. I see lips moving.
I was trying to find my picture so I could take my mic off. yes, that was wonderful. And I walk and write, and so I wanted to know if we'd be able to join in with the prompts on the Tuesday, because it's Tuesday here and it's the morning. So very excited from everything I've heard. But still, if we're not coming to Prespa, since you're called Walking Writers of Prespa.
I think we have to discuss that as a group. So I'm not going to say yes or no. I think we have to have a conversation about it.
Maybe Molly can text me a sneaky prompt then, just for this morning.
I think, well, that's an interesting question, is whether other people can get the prompts if they're available, and you could just do a walk and a write and do your own thing. I mean, what I would love is that, and one of the reasons, besides just showcasing all this wonderful work, is to say, oh, well, this is something anyone could do. It was so, it really is this like one step after another. I mean, I just said, hey, do people want to meet in Prespa? And then look what happened. And I didn't really anticipate that this is what was going to happen. And I'm sure there are things that are going to continue to happen after this. So yes, we can do that. Just, they're good prompts and they're fun. So we'll talk about how to make that work. Thank you, Andrew, for willing to be doing it at this time, and Annemarie. It's just so great to see all your faces and hear your voices and hear your words. And it was wonderful.
Thank you, Anne, for all your hard work in coordinating this as well. It's been really wonderful. I think round of applause for Anne.
It's been wonderful. We'll see you. We'll do it again. We'll see what next year brings.